Yeah, we got to. Mayor, is this a city council? I just wanted to. I'll mention that.
I would like to call the Rocky Mountain City Council Budget Work Session meeting to order. First off, I would like to welcome all citizens and guests to the meeting. This meeting is designed as a work session for council members to receive, review, discuss information prepared by staff. Only staff and council members are allowed to speak on this meeting without the special permission. At this time, I will ask our city manager to proceed with the business at hand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to pass out just a little sheet for guiding principles as we talk through the budget. I'm going to read this on the behalf of the people who are watching online. So this is just kind of like a frame for those of you that may be new to the process. I know we have at least one council member. This is his first budget. I know the rest of you have done it before, but I thought it'd be a good benefit to have for everyone know about our balancing process. So number one for the budgeting guidelines is we have to maintain a balanced budget. The city's final adopted budget must be fiscally balanced in accordance with the North Carolina law and sound fiscal management practices. Any proposed increase in expenditure must be accompanied by identified funding source or corresponding reduction elsewhere in the budget. Number two is very similar to that, offset and reduction accordingly. If you propose removing or reducing a revenue source, expenditures or service levels must also be adjusted accordingly to maintain balance. And likewise, if additional programs, positions, projects, or services are proposed, funding revenues or offsetting reductions must be identified. When we develop the budget that's recommended to you, we wanted to prioritize core and essential services. Budget discussion should prioritize the continued delivery of essential services, including public safety, record maintenance, utility operation, and other critical operations that impact our residents. We'd like for you to consider the long-term financial sustainability. Decisions should be evaluated not only for the immediate impact, but also for the long-term effect of stability, reserves, operational capacity, and future obligations. Number five, evaluate on-time versus recurring costs. One-time revenue is generally not be used to support recurring operational expenditure unless long-term funding strategy has been identified. And last, but certainly not least, we must maintain the legal aspect and contractual obligations. Certain expenditures are mandated by law, contractual agreements, or operational exceptions, and they may provide limited flexibility for adjustments. So again, I want to just provide that guideline as we get into our discussion. If you got any questions, that documents or anything therein, feel free to ask. With that said, we're going to just open the floor to you all based on your time to review the budget, answer any questions today. It's on the mayor and council's budget, enterprise funds, and then near the end of the day, we can open up discussion with the Senate Bill 1076 and related impacts, because that's kind of tied directly to our enterprise funds.
So I feel as if you keep it around for a little before one, but I'd like to be part of the Senate Bill 1076 discussion.
Okay.
If we could either move it to tomorrow or earlier today, I would appreciate it, but obviously that's.
No problem. Or we can kind of judge it by.
Yeah,
Yeah, so what do you want?
I would love to do it tomorrow. I'd like to be able to take all day long and deal with it as we need to, because I think.
I think we should just move it to.
Move it to tomorrow? All right, sounds good. So we'll focus on mayor, council, enterprise funds, or anything else. We can adjust that accordingly. Mayor, one of the things that you asked at the last meeting was the budget increase from what the previous level to the level that we're recommending this year. That has nothing with the operations of the city council and the mayor. What that includes is the principal and interest payment for the 336.
Yeah, the $4.2 million is allocated for mayor and city council budget.
Yes,
Okay.
part of that, and it's listed in here. We can go to that page.
2.7 million.
Yes, it's 2.7 million that is added to you. That's just the placeholder where it is in that budget, but that you're in.
Well, let's
you're-
go through it line for line if you don't mind, because I mean, that's gonna be a topic of conversation.
They're gonna get there eventually.
That's fine, follow that. You know, I just
Let's
wanted to
go
be,
straight to it. I think
I
with
just
page
wanna-
30,
let's get it out there.
35 is where the mayor council starts. Right. Let me know when you get there.
Maybe easier if you start with 38, which has the big price.
Okay.
And I think it's worth noting that, you posted on the city web.
Oh, yes, that's something I made to state. This entire budget in the interest of transparency has been posted online, not just the budget and brief, not just the presentation, but the entire line item budget has been posted online at our Rocky Mountain Financial Outlook.
Well, this particular budget, you gotta go to the main site right now because it's not on, it's on our main website, but not the finance website yet. So if someone goes, they just, go and search and put budget and then they do the budget off.
All right. So,
I think 36 is what.
yeah, that's where I'm on page 36. Right, starting at the top, salary and wages, that's self-explanatory. That's the salary and wages that you receive as a council member. That has not changed. That is the same that it has been, for the last couple of years. The employee benefits, go up a little bit because of insurance costs. The next line,
Excuse me, how much did the insurance cost per employee all across the city?
I don't know exactly right. Second,
Tell me that. I would also-
How much are we paying of that?
I think it was in our,
the brief, we increased it.
I was not here.
Okay, in the brief, we increased the overall insurance by, I think, about a little over 3 million.
It's not the admin, what?
That's a self-insurance?
No, the self-insurance was an increase for a little over 3 million, because last year we budgeted 11 million, this year we're budgeting 15. And so we could break it down at a later date on, per individual, how much it increased. That's how much we've added to, because that's going on. And what I discussed at the last meeting is that the city, a couple of years ago, moved from a fiscal year, calendar year to the full calendar year. And so we won't be able to look at different rates until the fall, and hopefully implement them by by January 1. The next item for the mayor and council is a budget of 620. What that is for is for professional services, and that is for the city's annual audit as well as legal services. The next line item is your operating expenditures. That's the things that incorporate where you are operating. That actually was reduced by 372,000. Obligations, we might need to go to the line item for that. Sure, what?
Page 38.
Down at very
Very bottom.
38, and on good.
I think the obligations were reduced because you all
There's
did
no
not-
election.
don't have an election this year. So that's what's in the notes. There's no election, so that was reduced.
so,
Yeah, 3.7, that's what I stated. Okay.
And that expense is to keep the polls open or care for the
Correct.
board of election.
Right. Uh, There's no, if you stay on page 38, line by line, there's really no major adjustments other than the community investment portion. You see on page 38 that for the last couple of years, that's where we housed our funding for some of the Boys and Girls Club programming. As was stated in the budget message that we are stopping the funding, suspending funding for most of our outside agencies. So just looking at that, there's really nothing else that is substantial. It's just telephone, ancillary expenses, this very small dollar amount. But if you have specific questions, I or my staff are willing to try to answer.
Well, just because it keeps coming up, the administrative service fee is also allocated. It's thought that
That is correct. Okay.
That goes across
I don't know,
multiple.
just to point that out.
I have three questions.
Yes, sir. And
On page-
either myself or budget or finance staff.
Sure, sure. On page 36, up towards the middle, transfers out. You didn't cover $952,800. What are those, please?
Transfers to, transportation, transfer.
Transit funds.
Transit.
Okay. Um, in the operating expenses, I see that travel, conference and schools for the mayor and council. 29,000 was what it was revised for this current fiscal year. And it's going up 21,000 to 50,000. I'd like to have a breakdown to how we came up with that and what conferences, how many people will be going, et cetera, please.
So, I can explain the adjustment, council can just, discuss exactly, where they anticipate going, but if you look at the adopted budget for fiscal year 26, council actually had 65,000 that was adopted the previous year. So the recommendation for this year is actually $15,000 less than what was adopted previously. The 29,000 was the revised budget that we did near the end of the year because most travel has stopped for not just staff, but for council as well. So council didn't go to many of the usual things that they've gone to over the last several months due to the financial crisis. But the fiscal year previously, council did have 65,000. And so my recommendation this year was that we kind of at least have a substantial amount for council to do the things that they have done in the past, but at a reduction of 15,000.
But at the same time, like the city paid 5 people to go to Las Vegas last year for the economic conference. Do we really need 5 to go? Can we not cut back? I'm all for some participants going to various conferences, but do we have to send 3 or 4 or 5, et cetera? Can we
That's
not
really a
look at
question
that?
for the council.
Well, I'm asking the council.
But I will say that this year, it's my understanding that not many people are going. I think the conference is this week or the next week, but nobody's going this year, is my
But-
understanding.
This 50,000 will cover that year, so. We just need to be cognizant, fellow council members, that if we're asking our citizens to pay some more property tax increase, which I really don't like, that we as a council got to take a look at how we can do better in the small budget that we control. And then the contingency amount of 200,000. Did we use any of that 200,000 last year? And what was it for? Or because if we didn't use it, hopefully there won't be any. But again, that's $200,000.
Yeah, the contingency, we don't have the, right here it says actual for, let me see what contingency is.
Top of page 39.
Under other,
enough. I'm just asking, did we incur any contingencies this past year?
We would have to look at the actual amount. What we did was focus on what has been previously budgeted. But I would say the contingency amount typically is for any other category within your budget that you all may have gone over in a specific line item. We'll have that contingency as a safe holder to make sure that the overall budget does not go over. So again, that can be reduced, but oftentimes, prices have gone up for certain things. Council members have asked to have certain community events. And if that, line item has, been shorted, then the contingency would cover that base. But we can also go back and look at the previous year to see what you have actually used in that line item, but we think it was, good to have at least a safe holder.
Well, I agree, we need to have some reserve, but I think in the emphasis of better informing not only the council, but the public, it would be nice to have some specific information, not everything, but anything of significance. Let us know what it is.
So contingency is just a placeholder
Yes.
and it's standard accounting practice. And it could be contingency in anything. It could be legal fees, it could be supplies.
Correct.
It could be insurance, it could be something that comes up that we don't see in the slip ahead. If you need it, we should get in there and can reallocate it.
Council Blackwell, it would be nice to know from the past.
But if you didn't have anything to pass the placeholder. I don't know, I see nothing under the vibe, so that could mean that we budgeted wisely and that we found other ways to allocate funds to. And do you have contingencies in every fund? Yep. So it's just a budgeting.
But yeah, because if you notice in the past, in previous administrations, we overestimated our revenues and underestimated our expenditures.
Right.
So this is an effort to make sure that occur again.
But again, this is our budget. Just more information.
Yes. And again, it could be adjusted however you all see fit, but we did think it was important to make that we had a contingency line item within the mayor and council budget. Any other questions with regard to the mayor and council? All right, next we'll move into our enterprise funds. We can start with, either one, that you prefer. Any suggestions on which one we start with? We have, electric, water, and stormwater here today. And gas. All right, well, Bradley, you're closest, so let's start with electric and gas. He and I will answer any questions that you may have about that one.
I guess to start, is there anything specific that you saw in the budget that you had questions over? Make sure we get those answered first.
And just for ease of use, the utilities start on page 91.
I know we're still waiting for the cost allocation study for, admin fees. But I saw in the gas fund, you were proposing going up 30%. Is that with the current, admin charges that you have, and could that change the percentage, or even if we need to go up, if the admin costs are adjusted?
Yeah, so the 30% number, it was a placeholder number as we were going through this budget process and waiting on the cost service study. As you know, right now, we have a 35-cent PGA in place over top of our base rate. What the rate increase would essentially try to do is move the PGA and increase the base rate to a similar amount. And so that would cover what we anticipated to be a steady hold in the admin service. So if that admin surcharge is reduced or any expenditures are reduced, then that as part of the cost of service, that rate increase will come down.
Got it. So I know the other day we said the timeline. What's the timeline for that study before we receive it?
Cost of service, analysis, we're looking at, either
46 weeks.
And we've already have, some that used to be in the budget process that we've reduced the the administrative fees across the board, for this year's fiscal budget. And more importantly, the interfund transfer, that was kind of a topic of discussion. We've eliminated that across the board for every account. So there is no interfund transfer this year. The only thing that we incorporate is the administrative fee across the board, for, cost allocation.
Because, if we're voting on a budget that has a 30% increase in gas and it's contingent upon, a cost, a cost study, I don't know how we have enough information to
It's
do it.
not contingent upon that. What we're saying is that, what Bradley was articulating is that the 30% increase gas equates to about $8 increase on the individual's, bill for the average household. So we know that the city has not adjusted the base rate in the gas department since 2015. Gas is a commodity, so we know that the price has continually went up over the last several years, even if you look at it now. So in essence, what Bradley just stated was that this will replace the PGA, and then if the price of gas continues to fluctuate, then they can implement PGA on top of the base rate. But again, the base rate hadn't changed in the city since 2015. That's over 10 years.
I got it, but he's basing his rate on his cost allocation, which I believe was around $9 million.
For this budget now, it's about six.
Okay, so it's.
It was at 9.2 going into the last adopted budget. Now it's around 6.8. And so that's factored in. So our cost of service consultant is about 70% done with the cost of service study. So right now he's got these for the budget. Just to kind of give you an idea, our base rate will cover about 23 million in revenue a year. Just the base rates as they are since 2015. So, you know, this budget here has $29 million total operating and capital. So that deficit needs to be closed. And so the cost of service consultant has these numbers that we're looking at today, and he's weighing out how that's going to each of the customer rates classes across the gas.
So that's around like what, a $6 million
About
gap?
$6 million gap.
Yeah, so, and that cost allocation is around $6 million, correct? So if it's adjusted, then your percentage, like what I heard you say, wouldn't be as much as raising the rates 30%.
Correct. And again, that the $8 difference is going to be, if we adjusted the base rates by 30%, it's $8 difference over what customers are paying today with the PGA in place.
Got it.
So it's really just a swap. And so the PGA is not meant to be a revenue producing mechanism. It's meant to cover the increased cost of gas, like what we had this past January, early February, when the market shot up. That's what the PGA is for. So if we get the base rates where they need to be, then what we can do is effectively use the PGA. If the cost of gas goes up mid-year, we can use it, but it shouldn't be much at a time. It should only be 3, 4, 5 cents, 6 cents.
I understand with the PGA, but the headline would be that we're raising gas 30% April 1st, raise, so, increase.
Gas
So,
was not adjusted in April.
well, the PGA was still there, and the PGA in 25, and the PGA, did you increase the PGA in April?
So there was PGA in 2025, and in September of budget year, the PGA of 20 cent was put in place.
Well,
And then
25 year, right, September of 25, but fiscal year 26.
That's correct. And then in April 1st, that PGA increased by 15%, 15 cents to 35 cents due to the additional cost of gas on the market in January.
Got it.
And I would propose that the headline would be is that the city is still, within the market across, ourselves to our peers, and that we are doing a better job of the cost recovery. Because if we are to, not have that administrative service fee at all, then going back to the budget guidelines that I gave you before, we would have to find another revenue source. And so if you don't do it from that end, you have to do it from another.
I understand that, and we're not discussing today 1076, but I think they got the wind of at 30%, and then they changed their language in yesterday's meeting, and when they included gas. So it's important what comes out of this office and what the people are looking at outside of this building. You know, all eyes are on Rocky Mount. So I know we're not discussing that today, but that gas magically appeared yesterday. And I think a large part of that because of the 30% increase. So we have to be very conscious. And if it's the admin fee is causing us to adjust it at that rate, then we need to look at that admin fee. And we only can look at that when we get the results back. So if it's going to be 6 weeks, I'm not comfortable voting on a budget without having all the information.
I think you were referring to cost allocation.
Yeah, I was referring to cost allocation.
That's
That's my understanding of what the, SB 1076 is. It's
Yeah.
referring to the inter transfer, which we made zero.
Yeah, but I'm
So I
just
think
saying,
it's
as
two
far
different
as
things.
the cost allocation, his 30% is tied to that. His 30% increase is tied to what he's gonna give in his cost allocation. Am I correct about that?
Cost of service study is weighing in what's put into this budget now, which is a reduction in the admin service charge. And but the numbers you have here is what the financial consultant is looking at for the rate study. And as part of that rate study, we'll also get an analysis and a presentation to council, hoping to have the first meeting in June for council. Going to give you an update on that cost of service study to show where the proposal is and where they fall against our sister utilities, and as far as comparison goes.
Got you.
But I feel like the city, and we just have to be careful on how we frame stuff and make sure that we're using factual information. But the storyline that I would go with is that the city has reduced the cost of service of the water department, and the gas department is actually operating at very good margins,
You got it.
very
But
efficient.
I understand that, but that cost allocation is still a big part of it.
And then also, just as a point of clarification, that the 35-cent PJ is effectively about a 35% above the base rate. So what you're looking at is really a swap. What customers are paying today with the PGA, if that was the actual base rate, it wouldn't change them much. We're anticipating no more than $8 a month increase over what they're paying today. So it's holding it the same. It's just a matter of how it's being utilized, how it's being gathered. The PGA would fall off, base rate would increase to where what they're paying today is going to be similar to what the rate increase would be moving forward, or at least proposed to the council.
It's not a big amount, but that chart on the upper right, it says transfers up 1%. Right. Now, on page 293. And this is energy resources. It could be, but it says energy
Yes,
resources.
the whole department.
But it says transfers and out. Look at that line item. And there's nothing there. But that says 1%.
Those transfers and others. So if you look at page 293, you'll see, Mr. City Manager
Right.
mentioned that the interfund transfer for gas and electric was zero.
Right.
But the line under it is the reference to that 1% chart there. And the other, refers to,
Again, I'm asking questions, not just for me and
Sure.
those
Yeah.
here, but those who are listening in.
Right.
Because they might be looking at the budget as we.
That's right. The other refers to payment in lieu of taxes and, those types of transfers that we pay to the city. It's not the admin service fee, it's the payment in lieu of taxes, and the interfund transfer, but the transfers.
And what payment in lieu of taxes or what constitutes some of that? Just, again, I'm asking
Yeah.
for.
So the property and
Okay.
the assets that Energy Resources,
Okay.
or excuse me, the gas or electric utility own,
Uh-huh.
we have to pay property taxes on that. And so essentially, that's our payment of property taxes to the municipality for the property that we own.
Right. Right. I'm aware of that. Just wanted the people to have a good understanding of that.
And I think another thing that we need to make sure that the public is aware of is that we are within the state law on that transfer, and it's within the guidelines. Right? Because I think some of the misinformation that's been put out there is that we're doing stuff that is not according to the general statutes, but everything that we've done within this budget is adherence to the general statutes.
Thank
And before we get into the electric and gas, Bradley, oversees, but the entire, enterprise fund, and I mentioned this in your budget brief. my concern is, electric, gas, water, sewer, and stormwater budgets have been reduced. And it's not necessarily the budgets have been reduced. My concern is more the deferred maintenance that's implied there. And and we all know that has to occur, but we also know that we can only do that for a short period of time. And so, we just need to all be aware of that and cognizant of the deferred maintenance next year. We might not have that way. In fact, you don't need all that too long to do. I hate to put you on the spot, but
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In fiscal year 26, the year we're in now, most of the savings that we incurred, we had some savings. The majority of the savings that Energy Resources incurred was deferred capital projects. So we pushed some projects off. But this budget for fiscal year 27, it includes ample funding, about $7.2 million for electric and about 1.6 million for gas, that we can start those programs back. Now, the intention behind this is to hold tight on those capital spending for the first 2 quarters of fiscal year 27. And let's see where we're at financially with revenues, see what our usage and volumes and improvement is for both utilities. And if we're in a good spot going into Q3 of fiscal year 20, we have those funds available to begin this capital project. So that's accounted for.
And that's another thing that I like to add with regards to the rates that we're having for the gas and for the other utilities, that if we keep those rates, we will be able to start to do some of those capital projects. To council member Doctor's point, we can't defer. Eventually we're gonna have to do. And so we have to have the revenue in place ahead of time before something occurs where we have to spend that money. And this budget tries to address that.
Bradley, what are some of the major capital projects that you hope to accomplish in this new fiscal year?
So our South POD, we have a transformer that was ordered and purchased, and they're projects that take many years of lead time. Right now, it's sitting at our site disconnected. And so we have to we have to buy breakers and the connection equipment and labor to connect that transformer to our delivery substation. So that's the plan for fiscal year 27. We got some upgrades on some transmission. We've got looking for to continue our tree trimming projects. That's a forward-looking maintenance. You'll notice that this past winter, when we had the 2 winter storms, we had very few tree limb outages. And that's because of our tree trimming program over the last number of years. It's been effective. So we're not going to pause that much longer. That's going to be put back into place. So mainly the biggest project that we're looking to get right now is the South POD, and that transfer, getting that new transformer.
And how, in 10 years, how long will a transformer last until whole thing has got to be
So we perform regular maintenance on it. It is not uncommon for a transformer to be 30 to 40 years in service.
How many transformers blow?
We have 3 at substation at the South POD, 1 at the North POD. Question, how many?
Normal throughout our whole service area, how many do you replace about this?
Oh, with the replacement, when we do a substation rebuild, typically that's when we factor in a transformer replacement. And so we don't rebuild substations every year. It's really, a substation is going to be rebuilt or at least refurbished probably every 10 to 15 years.
So when we allow boom and the lights go out, well, kind of general cost, many times, I don't know what you do. I hear the boom, the lights go out, and then they come back up. So
Yeah.
that's right.
Most of the time what that's doing is, most of the time what that does is it essentially trips the breaker. You know, to put it in terms of a house rule. It trips the breaker, and our guys go out there and they reset the equipment, and everything
So you're not replacing transformers and
That's right. We may have breakers, we may have some switches that need to be replaced, but there's some redundancy in the breakers and the switches. So obviously, we're not just relying on one piece of equipment. And that's why our point of delivery have multiple breakers, multiple switches, so that we can roll with the punches, so to speak.
Do you see any, critical issues that you're defining now that may come back to bite us later because you're defining it?
No, I mean, obviously, we have the transformer sitting at South POD that we want to get connected. So that's a priority. But the planning in our capital has been good the last, number of years. Again, the tree trimming projects have been good. Our extension projects are expanding our transmission out to be able to serve additional economic development load. That's been, where we need it to be. So, from a glaring, perspective, we don't have any major issues that we're looking head on. It's more just in the utility world, things can just happen. Parts can fail. We may have a transformer that we're expecting to have for 30 to 40 years in service, but it could fail at year 2. And so that's why our maintenance programs are paramount. You'll see that in our budget, we have quite a few dollars allocated for generator maintenance, substation maintenance. And that's because we want to make sure that we're doing all the preventive maintenance to make sure that those pieces of equipment last as long as possible. Our system's in good shape. Our customers can be confident in the fact that outside of anomalies, the maintenance of the system and the structure of the system is good.
The thing I'll add to that, and this goes across the board citywide, not just in the utilities market, but our biggest asset is our people. We've unfortunately lost a couple of electric linemen and several senior people in the gas department. So moving forward, we have to think about taking care of our employees and what that takes. Because again, while our infrastructure is solid, our employees across the board for every department is our biggest asset. So I want to do what I can to make sure that we continue to find ways to reward and support our city employees.
So, since you mentioned that, what is our turnover rate?
Recent week, we've had 5 or 6 resignations. So we're at about 80% of our allocated staff right now.
Okay, 8% turnover rate in the current year.
Yeah. We're at 80% staff.
Okay.
We've had a 10% turnover rate.
And that's obviously that he's talking about his department. I'd say the larger department where we've had a higher turnover rate is within our police department. So we'll get to that, but I think that's the 21st, we're talking about safety, but across the board, that's been the largest departure within our police department, because there's so many other agencies close about within range that they can get to. So I really want to find ways that we're trying to be as creative as possible, keep morale up and be competitive in what we do, but again, across the city board, that's the biggest problem.
I got you, but while we're here on utilities, I mean, that's a real cost that nobody really fully appreciates, and so, yeah, I don't know what the rate is, I don't know what potential programs we have in place, if that's accounted for in the budget, but, as we talk about rates, as we talk about everything else, there's nothing here's in a silo, and so I'm just trying to make sure we get everything on the table and understand it.
Yeah, what we've done just over the last couple of weeks is try to work on what we call it, career ladders for some of our people to incentivize them to stay. Because that's one of the things when people leave, they, have an exit interview. And what they talk about is just a competitive marketplace in that specific field and being stifled here with not having a career ladder. So typically across the board, we've tried to implement those where we could, given our current financial.
Right, so we found that in the budget, is that under the administrative fee, or is that
That's just
embedded in the
included,
department?
that's just included in their operations.
Okay, that's fine, just again, trying to understand what I'm saying.
It's part of, that part is part of our salaries and wages. Right?
Okay, got it, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's what it's.
So Bradley, also, I'm just looking at when it's an authorized position. When you see the warehouse associate 1, 2, 3, are we asking, 295? Just at the bottom, looking, are we asking to add one warehouse associate, or is that more like?
That's gonna be interorganizational transfer. So right now, our warehouse associates are housed under finance.
Okay.
And so, the plan moving forward, part of this budget is effective July 1st. Energy Resource, one of the positions under finance for warehouse associate will be transferred over to, it's a field position. There's already an employee in there. And so it really is just a matter of where they're allocated in the organization. So one will be allocated to energy resources, another to another department. And so basically it's a spreading out of that. It's not an additional position.
Okay. And on top of that, it's to help us with supervision because, finance is mainly in this city hall. They're not typically out and about. And so for supervision and knowing what's going on, we thought it was, I thought it was more appropriate to have them with some of our field operations.
Okay.
And would you say that energy resources is probably large majority of all warehouse?
Yes.
So that makes sense.
It's the majority of the warehouse. Water resources has a significant portion of it.
So you need the expertise with that.
They work closely with our field staff and Brenton, field staff, right? The warehouse associates work every day with those employees.
Bradley, electrical storm, the parts on the pole across the street from someone's house. What's the cost of replacing?
So most of your transformers are in the between $5,000 and $12,000, maybe less. It just depends on how many houses it feeds. But your typical residential, somewhere in that range. Now, when you start getting into more of your transformers that feed customers, those transformers can go up $70,000, $80,000, $90,000.
So people got to realize we got to have a sufficient number in inventory to be able to respond to some outages. Our inventory now adequate. I remember a couple of years ago, COVID, they were so late in trying to get them.
Lead times during COVID did cause us some concern about keeping inventory stocked.
Right.
The lead time are better, but it's something that we work in. Now we expect it. We can work into it. Our current inventory is somewhat sufficient. We'd probably like to build it up a little bit moving into the next fiscal year. The bigger concern is when we know we have, say, subdivision project coming and we're trying to expand out. We want to make sure we go ahead and grab those products ahead of time so that we're not a delay in that development. The warehouse associate coming over to energy resources will help in that process.
I know before I think about the, 5.9, almost $6 million elimination that you're saving in the, incentives because some capital projects are delayed. In that 5.9, can you discuss, share with us some of those projects that were able to achieve those type of things?
Sure. So, breakers can cost, substation breakers can cost up to $700,000. There's a lot of engineering assessment and analysis that go along with that. So some of those consulting contracts for substation upgrades can be in the $100,000 to $200,000 range. We are down a few engineers on staff now, so that kind of increases our reliance on some of these consultants. Also, we've got transformers that are on order because they have a 2, 3, 4 year lead time. We have to put those in order to get in line, so to speak. You have to have money available to issue a purchase order. And so even though that money may not be spent, we do have to have it available encumbered for that future purchase. And so a lot of that was deferred. We called up a couple of our transformer contracts. We've asked today, could we kind of get reseated back in line a little bit to give us more time for that transformer to come. That's one situation in North BOD. So we've worked to try to push off some of these big fixed assets. These fixed assets are really items that we probably, in a perfect world, should not be paying cash for. But because of the situation that we're in, we're having to pay cash for them. And because they are big expenditures, we've asked to try to get a little bit of relief in time, push those back. And that's essentially what you're seeing on the capital request.
Yeah, so this encumbered, will it show up as expense?
When we pushed it back, we took the PO away, it takes the money out, so it's not encumbered.
Okay.
It's Bradley, Mo 303. I'm just, when I say the union control contract, is that more, what is that consist of?
Which line are you referring to?
the contract, we control. On page
Yes.
303.
That's our tree trimming contract. It's basically, we bid it out. It's a 3-year contract. We just rebid it out. And what that does, there's 2 parts to it. There's the time and labor. So if we run into issues, storm related, we have a contractor we can pull in, and then we have a separate contract that is, a tree crew is in here for 4 days during the week, every week. And what they do is they go up and down our transmission, right of ways. And they trim the trees once they get within a certain distance of our line. They make sure those limbs and stuff are off of our line by a certain distance.
So, and that would be the weed control.
That's-
So
it's
so
all-
the tree, do the same company have a contract for the tree trimming?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's a bid contract through purchasing.
And I will say, not necessarily about the contract, but, my office receives a lot of calls about, tree limbs on power lines. And so, I would like for Bradley to clarify that some of those trees are not actually power lines. A lot of that stuff is, telephone and cable. And those companies take care of that, but, it's just kind of like a misconception when people just see the line, they don't know who it is. And so they call my office, and I think the mayor, they call, oh my God, they call your office. I want to make sure that we get that out, that our folks handle all of the electrical lines. Other organizations handle, the telephone and cable.
That's correct. We work closely with, Mr. Farmer's, department. If we go out, we get a call for, an individual, residence, the tree looks like it's leaning. As you mentioned, it may not be an electrical line. If it's not a direct, risk to the electric system, then we'll Farmer's Department, or time and labor, contract to get that out. But if it's just a personal, a resident's preference to have a tree down, we won't move for that.
So how do you define if it's imminent danger, if you will, to a power line? Who determines that? Is there a scoring system?
We have,
Because I do get a lot of calls on this, and I'd like to be able to head some of off, and have some understanding.
sure, we have, an individual on staff that's over all of our tree contracts.
Okay.
So, that individual will go with our tree contractor and they'll go assess the situation.
Okay.
And if that tree contractor feels like that tree is about to fall, it's dead, there's a limb that's broken, we'll take care of it and remove that risk from the electric system. If it's still a risk, but it's not a risk to the electric system, then we'll reach out to other departments to see if we can get that risk removed.
And that's a local company that does this.
It varies, but no, it's usually it's not an out of state, it's an out of town company that puts in for the bid, and when they, we go with the lowest bid. For the purchasing rules.
There are no other further questions for Bradley with regard to electric and gas. I think we'll move on to water resources if you guys are okay with that.
And we might have more questions on all of these. I
Yeah.
don't know about everybody else, but, this was a lot of.
Yeah.
Short period of time.
And it's free flowing, so they'll be here as long as you all are here. So if you want to come back to a certain subject, we can do that. If you have questions after the meeting, we can email you directly or call you, but the goal is try to be very transparent with what we have. Sure that you understand we are trying to do the best we can within the current financial constraints, but also understanding that we are deferring a lot of stuff that eventually we're gonna have to pay for. And the only way that we can do that is through our revenue.
In the post budget, was any of your funds in the red?
Near our line items,
Your what I was looking at? I saw some projected revenues in the enterprise funds, had really thin margins. And it seemed like, I can't find it now, but it seemed like some of the funds were in the red. Was it?
No funds are in the red with regard to, the utility accounts. You all receive a monthly, cash analysis that, is done in conjunction with energy resources and finance. And to date, we don't have any, utility accounts that are operating in the red or projected to operate in the red at this point.
Okay.
Thanks to the recent adjustments that we, got approved back in.
Thank you.
Well, ask question.
Sure.
the biggest expense obviously is the purchase of
Versus power and versus.
$56.6 million. With what we just recently received, notification of the 4.5% increase from Duke Power or whatever. That's a firm figure. You don't expect that to
That's
be in higher.
That's inclusive of the 4.5% wholesale power increase from Duke. That's in there. It's all, what's also in there is our fiscal, the remainder of our rider 123 and the true up.
Right.
And the upcoming rider 125, that's gonna start in October. All of that, those true up numbers are in that total figure.
But.
Yeah.
Duke is still sending more information and, it's probably not the end of the story coming from Duke. So, well, true.
At a recent meeting with Duke, you know, they had extensive gas expenses, just like we did in January and February. And so, moving into, they're still projecting increases for the next 3 years. It won't affect this fiscal year, but they're projecting those. And we were hoping to see reductions in true ups, but, you know, we don't know that yet.
Of course, Duke made $5 billion, but they're concerned about passing any cost increases to their shareholders, to their customers.
And I think that's a good point that you mentioned about the private sector. Any increase that the city incorporates to our rate, we have any leftover funds, those funds are dedicated back to our system and back to our residents in a way of savings or helping to stabilize our infrastructure.
And speaking of the wholesale energy, you'll notice that the wholesale gas purchases line item went up. That was because we are projecting out, working with our financial consultant, looking at natural gas prices projected out through fiscal year 27. We are seeing an uptick of where that market is looking. And so to better equip our budget for that, we increased our wholesale purchases up to 16 million as opposed to 14.5. So $1.5 million of the increase that you're noticing gas is specifically for purchase gas. And so, you know, as always, if we come up and it's a mild winter and good storage and the market's low, then that additional savings can be wrapped back into the system and potentially offset future increases.
Just flipping through this and we've heard, you know, we've obviously got a lot of controversy going on. And we hear people talking about staff making 6 figures, and some of those staff that make 6 figures are in our enterprise departments, specifically our line folks. And you just mentioned it to the mayor's question that maybe this year is a 10% turnover. We're at 80%. And I think that needs to be known that, you know, we're competing with the private sector. And some of our folks, I'm not sure exactly what the pay grades equate to, but with overtime and because they do considerable overtime due to storms and whatever may occur. Many of them probably meet that 6-figure mark. And if we go and invest with that, your 10% turnover will increase dramatically, I would imagine. So we'll make everybody, I know everybody here is aware of that, but I also will make the public aware of that as well.
Well, I'd just like to say too, let's look at what has been done. We have eliminated longevity. We have eliminated raises. Nobody got a raise last year. We have eliminated 401k contribution. For people who have retirement, we have changed what they'll be getting for the rest of their lives if they retire at this point. Some people should do more with less. And then you want the people who can create the solutions and the strategies to get us out to make less. And I feel that is unfair and inequitable solution going forward. People have already gotten less, they've already got paid less.
And add in practical.
And it's impractical. And you cannot, for the amount of money you're gonna get, or we would say, to cut, just because somebody's making six figures doesn't mean they don't earn six figures. That's a classist perspective too.
Well, the point I don't disagree with you, Councilman Blackwell. The point I was making is when that storm comes or our power goes out, we want to come back on and we have a great service record.
Well,
in
I
our
understand that,
community.
and I'm
But-
saying, but when the truck goes down,
Right, but
I'm just saying there's are critical, Councilman Doddridge, but their jobs are no more critical than anybody. in
we're
City
talking
Hall.
about, we're talking about, I don't disagree, but we're talking about energy resources right now, but the point I'm making
Yeah.
is mainly to the public, is when our power goes out, we want it cut back on immediately.
When we
And-
want something
and-
from the city, we want it done
I'm
immediately.
specifically talking about electric and gas, since we got Bradley up here.
Yeah.
So let me finish. So we want our power and gas to come back on as soon as possible. We're within a 1 hour, probably 30-minute response time, which is, I would dare say, the, public sector can't match that. So our service levels are wonderful. And so if we start messing with that, then people need to understand that either the power's not coming back on because we have, or at least for a long time, because we have very few folks working. Or, service levels are just going to decrease. So we've got to, everyone needs to keep that in mind. And I think we all understand where people are coming from. But I don't disagree, Councilor Blackwell, where you're coming from the other part. I'm specifically talking since Bradley's up here.
I appreciate that. I would say the same thing every time we talk about it in any department.
Right.
So it's my perspective that we've already cut everybody's salaries as deep as we can cut. And I don't even understand why that's a discussion that's valid and legitimate. If anybody is an employer in this aggressive workforce, how do you expect to get the best people to do the best job? You're not gonna compensate. And why do we think that our employees are not valuable in anybody else's workplace? We just want to be a feeder for everybody, every other power system, every other city. I think that's what we should be looking at. How do you create a competitive environment? We're asking our team members culturally to tighten belts, to do more with less. But you can't ask the people who are keeping the city running to continue to take hits and hits. We're all getting hit. But we shouldn't ask them, they're getting paid, they gotta pay the tax, they gotta pay because they good. Most of them do. They pay the same thing we pay.
This issue, you and I are not discussing.
The only thing that I would add to it, and I'm not.
That's fine, I don't care about that.
I don't disagree. Either one of you.
I just
But
want
when you make arbitrary comments about reducing a salary over a specific threshold, what you're doing is creating a bigger one with regard to compression. Right. Because if you have people who are making a certain threshold, you say, okay, we're gonna arbitrarily go out six figures, and we're gonna reduce them 5, 10, 3%, whatever that case may be. And you're gonna have people who are below them in the pay making more than their supervisors. And that's creating an entire layer of issues that the city has had to deal with in the past. So what we are trying to do strategically is to work our way out of that. Even though it's a big issue, my mom always says, the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And I feel like working with Bradley and the other department heads, we're strategically getting ourselves out of that hole. But again, it's my preference to look for other efficiencies as opposed to taking even more away from the people that keep the city running.
I like to, comment. I think everyone at this table wants the staff to be paid, and it's our job at this table to make sure the money is there so they can be paid. Because one of the, things when you're talking about reducing, and the public thing, there were petitions to reduce people's salaries, And I think the sentiment is that the audit showed that we breached the salary cap, right? That we went over. And over 1 year, we went to 62.5 million. I think that's been increasing with the salary pay. So we're gonna breach salary caps and we're gonna have an all-star pay. What they want is an all-star city. So I think it's up to this council to grow our city enough that we have money to pay our staff. You know, so we have to set the tone and environment that we're gonna grow the city enough that we can pay the staff. It won't be a problem with paying the staff, but we personnel one of the biggest drivers that put us in the hole that we are in, right?
Well, that's a lot.
Personnel pay, according to the audit, that was number one.
According to the audit, was that.
This wasn't across the board with the council.
Mhm.
It was not across the board. There were unapproved
That's what I was gonna
increases
say.
that the former manager made.
Got it.
This manager corrected that. Am I correct?
You're correct, and it wasn't properly budgeted for.
Right.
So the previous administration implemented a comp and pay study plan, but didn't tie the necessary revenue to that. And so that's why during this process, I want you all to see the full picture of what we have from a revenue standpoint, or match our revenues to our expenditures to make sure that we're in balance.
Got it. So as far as the staff getting paid, I think everyone wants the staff to get paid, the most that they can get paid. But we also want to have the money there, not going back to where we were. And I understand that you're putting the proper things in place, we don't. So I just want to say that we as a council have to set the directives to grow our city. And you as the manager, as the coach of the team, because if we have a team and we're paying them top salary and we lose the audience, we lose the citizens, and we're not winning any games and championships, then the public is gonna say, why are we paying top salaries and we're losing? And if you want to be real, we have a real talk, us has been losing population and we've been losing our stance currently where we at. So yes, let's pay top salaries, but let's set the tone so that we can move in a direction where we're winning championships. We're gonna have all-star pay, you have to have an all-star.
Well, I agree with that, but at the same time, you mixed a lot of things in there, sir.
Okay,
That you cannot blame the city of Rocky Mount staff on pay.
I'm not blaming the staff, I said it's
Well,
us.
I'm just saying,
Us.
well, we don't do this by ourselves, sir.
Yeah,
We don't control the quality of schools in Rocky Mount. If you want to know why people don't move number one, it's the quality of our schools in Rocky Mount. That's a county function. That's a county function. That's not a city function. We provide what we provide. Utilities, policing, state highways, fire, but we don't control the number one factor that creates opportunity for young people to move here. Workforce development, we don't control that. That's not our primary function for the whole region. We do not control it. We contribute to it and work with it. But we can't sit here and get blamed for decreasing population at the city council. You can't blame it. That's a nice talk speak.
no, we have
Somebody-
economic development that we're paying for.
Yeah,
And,
but-
when
but
jobs
that's-
chooses,
but
ways
well,
to come.
Yeah, but when deals come and they don't work, it's not because the city council of economic development didn't do their job. Now, we discussed that the other day. We've had several major industries about the land, and they were undone because of federal policies. Had nothing to do with us. And it's easy to blame and take a swipe. And it's easy to contribute things if you don't know what you're talking about. It's
Okay.
talk speak. But I'm just saying, I don't disagree with you that we should not have an all-star team, but we do.
I said, we have all-star pay, we need an all-star city,
We have all,
and we need the money there in order to pay
And we have
the
it.
salaries.
And we have it, sir. If you let the people who know what they're doing make the decisions.
Okay, we have the money to pay the top salaries?
We got the money in this balanced budget to pay people.
Okay. Okay, if that's your position, I'll hold this position.
Mayor, do you think that the pay and comp study that we have, plan that we have, is competitive in the marketplace?
I do.
So every single FTE that you've got budgeted within that pay and comp plan is consistent with what you think is competitive.
Correct, and I don't
And
want the
so-
misinformation to be that we're at the top. We're within the market. In some areas, we're a little bit below the market, but across the board, we are very competitive.
And that's what we're here, and this is just an arbitrary approach, we, pay and comp studies, where we got off track is that we deviated from the pay and comp study. In fact, actually, we ignored, and I say we, I don't think anybody here was part of that conversation, but we, in terms of the management of the city, deviated from that plan. You got to bring that back to direction. So you think that's good. Do you believe that number of FTEs that you presented in this budget are consistent with what you need to get the job done?
At the level.
That's different than whether or not they're full.
Yes, at the levels that we are now, I think this brings us back in line to where we were a few years ago.
Okay.
And I feel like we can operate efficiently with that. That said, there are going to be continued economic pressures.
Sure.
We're going to have to grow again, but I think for where we are now, we're at a good point.
I just want to hear that there's a methodology that's deployed that checks in with the marketplace, that allocates the number of full-time equivalents to be able to get the function done that you're working above, and you're looking for this body to bless that or not.
That's correct. And there's some areas where, if you notice in the overall personnel standpoint, where we have a reduction of like 58 positions, either frozen or that were vacant. Some of them are individuals in positions currently that will be restructuring. But the goal is, our best is to operate efficiently as we can. However, to everyone's point, we're trying to pay those people that we currently have. I just don't think we can afford to be in a place where we're taking further funding.
Now, with that said, just kind of tagging along with what Councilman Doctor was talking about, our utility departments probably have a quicker turnaround in terms of what market pricing is in terms of employees, because we have Pike out there, we have Duke, Progressive, we have all these different Dominion, we have all these other companies out there. Is there a faster process for that? How are those prices set? How are those salaries set?
They're set within the market, just like everything else. However, the point that he was making is that across the board, it's not a common practice, but in utilities, those employees typically are on the higher end of the range as it relates to other city departments. And
Sure.
they are no higher or no lower than anybody else. The issue is that when you're in the private sector, you can get bonuses and stuff. And for the last several years, employees within the city of Rocky Mount didn't get bonuses, but they were able to get merit increases on an annual basis. We're not at a position across the board now to offer that. And so if we go and take away the merit increase for annual increases, we've already taken away the 401k and the longevity. If we go and reduce salaries above 6 figures, we're going to lose.
No, I get it. I'm not making a case, I just want what the methodology is.
Yeah.
And that we're actually tracking on. So as it relates to our utility employees in particular, pay and comp study still takes into consideration, you believe, what the market is demanding at this point.
Correct. And it is a little bit volatile in that sector, because again, we are competing with the private sector, a little more than our other departments, but overall, we're in a good place.
So what I'm hearing you say is that your levers are just different than that of the private market, right? So
Correct.
if I'm in the private sector and I got a challenge right now, I can offer a bonus, fill up my ranks because I've got a big ice storm, and then when it's done, I can either lower that or eliminate the bonus or whatever I need to do to try to incentivize the behavior that I'm looking for. Right? You don't have that flexibility.
Our rates are set, for the most part on an annual basis. And then, historically throughout the year, you could do, career ladders, like go get other certifications. And those are the things that we're trying to implement now, due to the fact that we produce and restructure in other areas. So we have a little flexibility to offer that pay, not just to utility, electric, but also to water and some of our other things that require advanced specialized degrees.
So to compensate for the differentials that exist out there in that particular marketplace, we're having to defer to salary and more of a longer range benefit for that employee base to stay competitive. And so that's just sort of the trade-off.
Yeah. And by implementing the career ladders, you're getting better quality employees, because it's giving enticing them to go to certain trainings to get certain certifications, which allows us to be very, very competitive.
Sure. Well, look, so this is just Andy's opinion, not reflected, but it all comes down to leadership and management. And I think we have a good management team and a good leadership. And I think that's what's reflected in that. But I just wanted to, so I think we're all saying the same thing, but I just want to break it. I don't think those who are listening can understand. I mean, there's a method here. There is a structure here. There is a guidance here. What we got to decide is whether or not there's enough FTEs.
Got it. And this is about it. So everything you presented can be paid for. Correct.
Yeah, but we also are proposing raising taxes and 30% in gas, so it can be paid for at what expense?
All
But I'll
right, that's
just-
another conversation.
So what I want to get clarification on is, I know when we had the audit, we was outside the pay and comp study. Are we currently balanced and inside? If the state audit came today, I know, and thank you for your leadership in saying that you, corrected and you're right in the ship. But are we within that pay and comp study now? Cause I know before he was way outside.
Correct.
Thank you.
We're within our, of the pay and class study. That's correct.
Because it
Pay and
was,
classification.
and what I wanted to speak to that, you know, we amended it to match what we did. Right. The reason we got over, way over our skis was not because of 6 figure salaries. It's because we increased entry-level positions. 35% in one department, 25% in another department, 21% in another department, did not have the revenue, sustaining revenue to match that. So it wasn't what was at the top. That's what we did was we heated up the compression for the middle level management. Brought people in and were making walking in the door, what took other people 15 years to get to. You know, that's another situation. Get the $60,000. That's the see.
And there was instances where people were getting, bonuses and raise, addition to their salary that was outside of our pay plan. You had, individuals that was, for, you know, getting a certain percentage outside of what was normally given for everybody else. So even before I became city manager, when I was the interim HR director, I uncovered some of those, inconsistencies. And I then presented them to, interim city manager Peter Barney to make those reductions, to make them in line, so make sure that any increase that an individual is getting, is the policy that on the books. And so we are, adhering to the current policies that we have on the books and we're within the current pay ranges.
I just think it's very important is that we go forward with leadership, finance, budgeting, et cetera. And keep in mind, cash is driving this whole bus. And we have got to be mindful of our cash levels. We have presented a forecast of cash to the LGC. And I'm almost confident, we never know the unexpected. But I look forward, we go through this year, is for our citizens to know that we are very mindful of what we are doing here at the city from a cash flow standpoint. Cash is revenues or expenses. And I'm looking forward as we go through this next year. Because our goal is that we don't have the LGC oversight anymore. And I think that's probably early councilman's goal. And we need to all work together.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I want to commend you and your staff. This budget looks a lot more detailed and defined, than any budget that I've seen since being elected, since 2019. So I just want to thank you and your staff for that. I know Brad is done now, but one of my main questions, be around the Old Mill substation pump, which I think that's more so bad, right? Okay. So I just want to jump right to it. I mean, I know it's been CIP for a few years now. How much is that total cost? Where are we? And what's needed to bridge the gap?
Okay, so the Old Mill Pump Station project is ongoing. The station itself is anticipated to be completed in August of this year. There's a second phase to that project, which is to put in a force main. Because if you upgrade the pump station, you also have to upgrade the piping, fluid that flow is going to be received. For that portion of the project, we have not yet identified the funding source, but we do have allocations in this year's budget, for that project. So what you're asking about itself, and, yes, that project has been going well, and the, cost associated with that is 5.6 million.
So remain.
Actually, remaining on that project is about 1.4 million. We are about 80%.
That's within this 4 million capital outlay, line item for this.
Or we're talking about what is allocated in this fiscal year, 2026. So, whatever is left remaining will be forward just to wrap that up in August of this year. And then we will be looking for additional funding to do the force main project.
And the force main, do we have a figure for that?
No, we're getting ready to put that, well, we will be putting that project out for bid, but a rough engineering estimate could be somewhere in the region of 25 million.
And did the county help with any of that funding, from any type of grant?
Yes, for the Old Mill Pump Station itself, we received approximately $3 million in grant funding, through national.
Without the pass-through.
It was a pass. Yeah, it's actually coming from the state, but Nash County, it was a pass through to Nash County. They got a bucket of cash for several other municipalities within the county, and an allocation of 3 million to the city of Rockingham, particularly for that project.
So the force main, roughly just ballpark, do you have a ballpark figure, what you think that may come?
Because of the budget page, I think it's 368. Because I want to make sure I'm following what you're saying, Councilman Walker. And I might be wrong, and that's why I'm requesting. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I just, we're throwing figures out, and I want to write, I'm writing notes, so trying to.
And what I will add to why I recommended this project to be completed, number one, because we needed, Councilmember Harris, this is in your ward.
Yes, sir.
This is such an important project for the city because we have had the deniable, housing developments, coming online where, individuals have purchased properties. We have three or four developments right now that we cannot permit. But once we get this project to completion, we'll have an additional 700 to 1,000 homes coming online, as soon as this project is complete, because the state will not allow us to permit them. I'll let the city engineer just step up for 1 second to confirm what I just stated or change it a little bit, but I know because we've been having meetings over the last several weeks of trying to complete this project so we can get those homes online. Now, if you would just speak to that.
Okay, so, you're right, Mr. Manager, and, basically, but I will say that they can't start on the subdivision. They've already got plans completed, they've got, have bought the land, they got carrying costs in the land, and they're, waiting for us to get this force main completed before they can actually start construction.
That was why I was asking, so the force main, do we just have a ballpark figure on what that falls on?
I think it'll roughly around 2.5
For the fourth name?
cost.
Yes, it's very hard to predict at this time because we'll be asking for the use of a 14-inch pipe, which is not typical, but is appropriate in the design of the pump station. So that will have to be ordered. And with the ongoing increases in material, the engineering firm that has done the design for us, has estimated somewhere in the region of 2.5 million.
Where will these projects, the Old Mill and the force main, does that serve the entire city or does it serve a portion of the city?
A significant portion of the city on the western side, Halifax Road, Bethlehem Road, some sections of Sunset Avenue, all of those sewer lines are tied into the line that comes through the Old Mill Road.
So what are our infrastructure plans for improvement on the eastern side of that?
Well, we have in our 5-year capital improvement, upgrades to every substation across the city because we have done a comprehensive study to show their capacity challenges. And in many cases, let's say, for example, Sharpsburg, Johnson Street Pump Station, which is in the south side of Rocky Mount, We have identified areas of need to increase those capacity as well. But some of those can be done without actually building a brand new pump station. It could be more of a renovation and upgrade to pump size and pump capacity. But we have identified a significant portion of our pump stations which have been in operation in the 70s and 80s that are definitely in need of upgrade. But they are meeting the demand as it stands right.
So we're gonna talk about it, see how big, what we're gonna have separate time.
We can talk about that, now, because the reality is as it, for the current year, we have deferred a lot of that capital.
We're wrapping this project up.
We can move on to,
So, right, so what are the next priorities at 5 years? So are we looking at year 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5?
Yeah.
Or some of all?
Yes,
one or the other.
When we look at the CIP, that is for the fiscal year, it included funding to do one pump station each year. So we start it out over a 5-year period. But just to be clear, as long as we are in the business of treating sewer, we will always be in the business of repairing infrastructure and upgrading infrastructure, just because of the harsh nature of sewer. It has, explosive flow. And so you're always gonna have degradation in pipes, degradation in pumping capacity. So it's always gonna be a maintenance infrastructure upgrade approach to sewer management, maintenance and management.
So what happens to what are our plans to mitigate the continual spillage we see on the Tar River from sewage spills, overflows? Washington Park area, right? That community, Leggett Road community.
Yeah, one of the most troublesome area for us is the Riverside Drive. It happens to be the lowest in our collection system. And 60 to 70% of the flow that goes to the wastewater plant actually comes through that location. And also we get sewer from Sharpsburg, another municipality are also just converging right at that location. So that's one of our most troublesome spots. And it's usually driven by high rainfall events. So we do have rags that have gotten up into the system that's caused blockages, and we continue to ask our citizens not to dump things that are not biodegradable.
So my question is, what upgrade are you making to mitigate whatever all those factors are that continues to have the same result?
So what we have done and has been doing is that we have been focusing on realigning sewer lines, because inflow infiltration is what contributes significantly to, again, I mentioned about increased rainfall events. So because of root intrusion in sewer lines that are running through wooded areas, or even cleanouts that are missing at residences, that is the amount of water that gets into the system and inundated. So we continue to do our smoke testing to identify those areas of vulnerability. And we also continue to do our camera inspections. And when we identify areas that have cracks in the sewer lines, it's not just a matter of replacing those lines. Sometimes we can reline. And we have put funding in the budget for those kind of activities on an ongoing basis. Of course, given the situation that the city is in, we are challenged to do as much as we have done in the past, but it's something that is considered a deferred maintenance, and we will definitely need to get back into that routine as we go forward.
and Councilmember Blackwell, we actually paid for a study with our engineers directly for that specific location. And the issue that we ran into is that due to it being the very lowest point in the city, and there's the railroad that's right there, is that the possible fix, and I say possible, was very, very expensive, and it wasn't assured that it would correct the issue. So what we've decided to do is continue to do the realigning and changing the pipes in that area to kind of divert some of that water to other locations. But again, that is a central focus for the city, is trying to correct that issue for a more permanent basis. And also for the other pump stations, they were not in as bad as condition as that one on Old Mill because it was at max capacity. The other ones, while not in great condition, they still have capacity and we won't have to put as much money toward upgrading them as opposed to building a brand new. And we're actively working with other state agencies, DEQ, to try to find grants to assist with that. And that was one of the things that we did just recently, deferring the grant payments for our water system to help us with our cash flow system so we can continue to investigate that even further.
Yeah, and I don't, diminish what we've done because it needed to be done. In order to grow our city, it had to be done. In order to maintain quality of life for a lot of people, it needed to be done. I don't disparage that at all. And at the same time, we know that for other sections of our city, and that point in particular, that we continue to have problems that create fines and dirty rivers, which we don't want. And so are we prioritizing that? Yeah, that is one major issue that we got. Where your priority is focusing in on dedicated infrastructure improvement and development in that section of our community, which is also postured for growth. If we build the infrastructure.
What I'll be willing to say is that, based on this conversation today and sound like direction we're given, we'll make that the priority moving forward.
Thank you. So with the $3 million proposed allocation, that puts us at a completion by August.
No, the August maybe of 2027, because we have not yet bidded the force main project. So when that's done, that will at least be a 6-month project, because we're gonna have to bore. To put that force main line, we're gonna be having to bore under 301. Also, we're gonna be boring under the Tar River to extend that line. So that project will probably not start until down in the fall, and that will take us over into the summer.
And
Yeah.
all the
But the present pump station that we're building is slated for completion, and then when that force main is done, it's just a matter of tying them in together. So we believe that in totality, this project, the force main and the pump station will be by August 2027.
But all development is halted until the completion of the fourth.
The development once we start with the force main, they can be permitted and they can start to build their houses. They of course not gonna build 500 houses all at once, so it's gonna be phased in. So at that time, we probably will be running together in terms of the force main going in, houses being built. So when they're ready, we're ready for them.
And that project is made to start in the force main when.
As soon as we can get this bid out, which we're anticipating to do at the beginning of next fiscal year, then we will have bids coming in council to approve, and we're anticipating starting that project at least no later than September, October.
This year,
Yes.
when I say this year, I mean it's calendar.
Yeah, September of
2026.
this year.
All right.
Yeah, the goal is to get through the summer months, with our, because based on that cash projection that we had, get through the summer months where we start to receive some of our more of our income, and then we will be receiving the bids for that at the same time, and we'll be able to start. But again, as soon as we that one portion of the project, we can begin and start issuing the permits for the houses.
Thank
Mr. Manager, I think, Monday during your presentation, you made reference to working with some of our state legislatures. There's
Yes,
special $6 million that we can't use right now that's been allocated to us for usage, that if we can get some agreements in place, and
yes,
that's dotting a lot of i's and crossing a lot of t's,
yes.
that we could perhaps use some of that special allocated money with the completion of this project.
Yes.
How likely could that be? We're at the mercy of that.
Yeah, it's hard for me to speak for our General Assembly, but I do know that we actually submitted a letter to request that. I think as of last night, I think it was said they had agreed to some deal. I haven't read all the details of that yet. Of course, passing a state budget, but I do think that's closer. So when they align their forces and they agree on a state budget, hopefully, we will have that allocation, directed to the city, in which that will be some of the pressure that we have on our, city's budget, and we'll be able to complete that project. But again, I'm optimistic, but, again, not certain.
Right. The last thing, I know we're not gonna have a detailed discussion on CIP as we had in the past, but hopefully January, February of next year, if we are showing good improvement, that we can start having a CIP discussion before we even start working on the regular operating budget discussion.
That is correct.
CIP is critical for the long term.
Yeah, because right now, during our budget discussions individually with the department heads, they came in knowing that a lot of stuff was going to be deferred because we just simply don't have the cash flow. However, what we would like to do moving forward, and Cheryl can speak to this a little bit later, but we want to set up those multi-year funds. So when we do have a project, we can set it as a multi-year, and that funding is set aside, and it's not something that you all have to address on a year-to-year basis. It'll already be included into our project fund ordinance, and we'll be able to fund those projects accordingly. That, right, Cheryl? Right. Any other questions for Brenton? We hadn't really gone, it was budget yet, but, that was the biggest, expense that he had, was that ongoing. And Brenton, if there's anything you want to highlight while they're looking, feel free to do that as well.
Well, the only thing else I would highlight on the water side is that we have had to do an increased allocation for chemicals for treating the water. This is of course of importance, given the fact that we have no choice but to treat water to the best quality that we can. So, of course, the increased cost of chemicals is beyond control, and I'm grateful for the budget and finance director and the manager for recognizing the importance of treating that as a priority. We'll do our powers to make sure that we operate fiscally in a responsible manner. But bear in mind that chemical usage is dependent on the source water, and if we have rainfall events and the water is stirred up, then you end up having to use more of one particular type of chemicals to help with the facility and all those kind of things. So it's hard to predict exactly we may come in under, but hopefully we will be as we've been consistent in previous years with our allocation for chemicals. But that's one of our largest costs in water treatment process is the use of chemicals.
Are we good with our water management system with the reservoir? Do you have whatever you need to ensure that everything is working out there?
Yes, sir. In this current fiscal year also, we have done infrastructure upgrade with our pumping capacity at the reservoir plant. We are actually in the process of installing a new raw water pump. That's a pump that's taking the water from the reservoir and sending it up to the treatment plant. We have focused on making sure that our pipes are clean. We continue for our sampling standard options, making sure we are testing for any contaminants. Just now we have our consumer confidence report that's about to be published that shows all our water quality, and we'll be asking for that to be put in their email letters for customers and also the city's website. You can view our water quality. So we're confident that we're treating according to state and federal regulations, and assure the public that the city's water system is safe and fit for consumption.
Is that a third party review
On
the report that's getting ready to be?
Yes, some aspects of those tests are done by private contract labs. We submitted those results to the state for verification, and always done by certified laboratories, not Amazon testing kits.
That's why I asked the question.
Just one last question. You're talking about the Old Mill Road pump station, 1,000 houses. What does that mean to us once fully developed, average size house in terms of utility revenue, tax revenue-ish?
I'll
defer to the engineer. I haven't seen the specs of the homes or anything. I just know.
Well,
that-
let's just say average, whatever the average is, like I told her, the house, the house, whatever.
I haven't discussed any of the house
Right.
with anyone, so I'll take it,
Look, it's
I can
just a
get
sky
back.
grab, okay, but I'm just trying to get an understanding of what the revenue offset is to this investment that we're putting in or going forward.
Tax revenue is about $1.9 million.
Okay,
If based on $300,000 average house
Fine.
cost.
so then, that over a 3-year period of time covers this, once fully developed.
Is that 1.9 assuming it's 7?
It is at 62 cents.
Okay. I don't know if I missed it, but if I did, I'll go back and look. But these savings that you have in like the water, big, but you have savings here. In the water, it's like over 666,000. Sewer, that's 7 million. Oh, I'm sorry. I was on page 16 in the brief. Oh. Because I noted, because I just got this. So, but you had savings in your water and your sewer. I think it was like, was it 7 million in the sewer fund and around 666,738. That was on page. That's capital, that's not savings.
Again, that's just a matter of, some different, we're making on purpose that are probably, that we would eventually, address. And, you know, not this coming fiscal year, but in future fiscal. No, we have identified those projects as manageable, with the infrastructure that we have. Maintenance, as I said earlier on, will always be required. For example, we have an electrical control box at the Sunset Avenue Water Treatment Plant, which is working. It's doing what it's supposed to do. But we are mindful that because of age and slow degradation, it is something that will need to be placed before it crashes. And that's what we try to do. We try to get ahead of it before it actually, we don't run it into the ground before, because we know how that can be disruptive to our process. So that's one that we could defer because Tar River plant, which we will be moving to as soon as we got that raw water pump installed. So we figure that we can do that project in FY 28. So those are the kind of things that we strategically identify. What can we move? What cannot be moved?
You talk about your capacity and what you currently serving, 10 million gallons and,
We are blessed in Rocky Mount to have 4 treatment plants with a combined capacity of 26 million gallons per day. On average, we are actually serving 10 million gallons per day right now. So we do have some available, plenty available capacity. And that's a good thing to have, except that we are hungry for more development because, yes, we would like to sell more water, make more money.
they have around 6 million gallons.
Of available water that we can put out there. So we ask our economic development team to be aggressive and bring the industries to us. I mean, back in the late 80s, 90s, when we had textile industries, we were out serving 16 million gallons. So it's not like we have not done it before. We have in the past been able to provide 16, 17 million gallons a day of water.
And just looking at the budget brief, you said you were on page 16. We have those are compared to the budget that we currently have in place for fiscal year 26. So while those are definitely, realized we're down to 2.1 million, understand that some of that stuff is deferred capital. So while it's quote unquote a savings for the current budget moving into the next budget, eventually some of those things we will have to incorporate. Yep, that's correct.
The rubber band stretch.
That's correct.
Okay, got it.
Questions for Brenton? We did have stormwater, but I was informed that some of the customers may have to leave, so I'm fine with stopping here or going a little bit longer if you all would like to. It's really up to you all. Stormwater shouldn't take but maybe 5 to 10 minutes if you want to go ahead and push through. All right.
Last question for Brandon. regarding rates, are you comfortable with the rate where you're currently at? For sand in the black and, you know,
Well, we recently, the city council recently approved the rate adjustment for water and sewer. And we believe that will help us significantly in increasing our fund balance. So for right now, yes, of course, based on the presentation that we made, you realize that now we're in the market a little bit better than where we were, but we're still not higher than our other municipalities within our region. So we are at this point, we're fine with the current rate adjustment that recently was very much needed.
And is it accurate? We weren't covering our costs with our previous rates. It's like we should have, and more so that impacted when you apply grants to cover some of this infrastructure. To help us, offset these costs from the city, we were all often declined or not eligible because our water rates were so low. And therefore, the view of the grantors were, if you're selling it at such a low rate, then you don't need our money to help you out.
That is correct, sir. That was one of the obstacles that we run into in certain grants, because grants, when you apply for them, they're on a point system, you're up to big certain points, and one that they look at is your current rates. And oftentimes, we will be losing points on the fact that our rates will. So this helps us and put us in a better position to grab those extra points so that we can get up.
how's the current market with grants, and can that help bring back online some of those deferred, capital?
Well, I mean, we're all there, obviously, right now, we're pursuing grants on the sewer side for the Dog Pound Sewer Pump Station. That's over on,
That's an area that Councilman Pratt was just talking about.
right, it's close to the, Riverside Drive. Donald is driving that train, and doing a fantastic job with that. We're yet to be fully approved for that, but he's putting all the data together, and has submitted some, so yeah. They're always gonna be out there. One of the challenges, of course, is that some of these grants, they require a match. And herein lies a little bit of a challenge concerning our financial situation. How can we match those grants?
I will say one cost saving that we've had with regard to the engineering, and this is really a good kudos to Donald, is that in the past, for the last couple of years, you have to go out for these major projects. You've had to hire outside engineering. We don't have to do that now because Donald, from an internal staff point, can do a lot of improvement of the permits that we had for the housing developments. We could do that before from internally, but now we have someone who's qualified and certified. Yeah, so that itself saves us over hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Thanks. What's the number on that grant you're pursuing now? What is over?
Donna, can you, answer that question there? The amount of, I think you're in the region of $12 million for that grant on the local.
I would just say that, but just be aware and recognize that we're in the very early.
Early
Well, we're
stages.
past the early stages, but nothing is set that we will get the grant. We don't, yeah.
All right, Don, come on up.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't tell Tim to come on up. It's a combination between. Words, detail.
We see that.
Yeah, they're a dynamic duo.
We've been, we're paying.
Wow.
Okay, so forth.
Yeah, so I'll just, I'll start asking, specific questions.
This page, can you tell us where it will?
Okay, 371.
370.
I guess it's 370.
Yeah, that's, I did the same thing.
I got the same observation that I had. Brandon was up here, you know, for the amount of money that we have in the budget for this. The difference is significant.
So what were your main, reduction areas?
Within capital. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so does that mean that we're rolling it down? I think the mayor talked about stretching the rubber band. Does that mean you're deferring that to other years? And so what are our, in this budget, or this budget period of time, what would your priorities be for stormwater, management?
So,
Capital.
yes, we pretty much minimize everything that we didn't have to do. And so, anything that we can design that we could stop and we plan on doing in future years, we stop that as well.
But I don't know what the everything is. Yeah, give
So we, basically, for example, Pearl Street culvert, we'll stop that. We've also stopped, things I was looking at, for the Battleford community that we're hoping to be able to get that back online. We did complete the Edgemont study. We'll have to wait a little bit of time before we can do some of the suggestions and recommendations that they have. The type stuff that is sort of pushing.
So what's been delayed then is downtown, Pearl part of that. Pearl Street is downtown,
Right.
and Battleboro.
And like Edgemont, some of those things we would pick up, that's, delayed on.
And I would say that some of it, if you down with this state, I want to be clear, a couple of the studies are completed. We just don't have the funding to implement what was done. And then the other ones were starting that we're about to start that we decided to just delay.
And so at a separate time, yeah, we don't need to talk about this. I know we got time limitations. Can we talk about what the solutions were for those communities, that we'll have to pick up later? So those citizens will know what to expect now.
I can get that.
Yeah.
And I know, back when Kerr was here, he was looking at some, grant for the downtown projects. Is that alive at all anymore? Are we pursuing any of that? Because I think around the time it was around $10 million.
Great, great, all that stuff.
Yeah, so the BRIC grant has changed and anything that we can do as far as, applying for grants, we do, but just keep in mind, we have to have the money.
All of them are matching.
Yeah, with some are matching, yes. And then, or in some situations, the grant would cover X amount of what we need to do, and then we would have to cover the rest. So you couldn't just make the grant smaller or the area that it's covering smaller. For example, if we have a grant to, I'm saying that we have a grant to help on sidewalk, that type of stuff. So you have power lines and stuff that has to be moved. Also, the asphalt and the curb and gutter that's beside the sidewalk has to be modified as well. And we may be responsible for that part, just to give you an example. So there's a lot of that that goes on as well.
The three subdivisions we talked about in Ward 6. If stormwater been allocated to bring those on completion and stages or what's got to be done stormwater to complete these three subdivisions?
So in this subdivision, that will be built by the private developer.
Okay.
And then once it's installed and has gotten through the warranty phase, we will accept it. But typically, after it's completed, most people think it's completed, it's usually about a year and a half or 2 years before we do a final acceptance.
Just let people know the developer are responsible for the initial costs.
That's correct.
On the operation side, are there any specific questions on page 375?
Did you lose staff at all, in this budget, or are there positions that you put on hold?
The position was put on hold, we lost a couple, we had a death, two deaths, we had a field, but on the operating side, we started to advertise some positions. Right now, the current operator is posted, make the position, posted this way, and office, so to make it work with one position on the ditch making side, which is good for you offset flooding and, infest with high grades. And I want to thank this council for giving me the leeway to purchase those remote control lawnmowers and the shortage of staffing. It helps get in those areas that we're normally seeing and get into. So those machines have really been about it. I want to thank the council for allowing us to put.
So your staff now handles that cut instead of us contracting it out here. So that's what we save money to use.
You have a lot of open ditches to maintain.
And that's one of the areas that previously we've had a lot of turnover, but quite frankly, during the summertime, it's hard to recruit someone and say, hey, we want you to go in this. So Tim was very creative and coming up with a solution to do that, even though it was a little expensive at the time, it's starting to pay dividends back because we're able now to completely without sending employees out.
That's the one you use by multi-pro.
Yes, sir. And the public works team and the streets and stormwater division, I want to commend my staff for being creative and combining forces, cross-training individuals that we have on the staff to public duties while we navigate through our situation.
So in the Edgemont, community area, that the improvement to the, I guess, system where we took those houses down.
Yes.
I guess we turned that area into a natural habitat. And so now the natural habitat, the grass is like 6 feet high, so is that what it's gonna look like?
We typically go in and rough cut those natural areas, fine, we typically start to mow with tractors about this time of the season to get them before it gets warm, once it gets in the height of the heat season, and then once more in the fall. And we rough cut it, we don't fine cut it because it's supposed to maintain its natural features.
Okay.
It won't be 6 feet,
It won't be
Well,
still.
right, I'm just saying.
You
I
really,
just-
you
I
really
just-
won't.
Yeah, I just recommend that maybe we, put some signage up or something that just says natural habitat or something. Because if you just ride through, it just looks like, well, what is that? Right.
I do have I think that's a good segue for another topic similar to that with regard to other communities. My office has also received a lot of calls about high grass throughout the city. One of the downsides of reducing our budget is that we had to reduce the contract costs to do that. So we are still maintaining some of those properties for code violations, but we're not doing it at the frequency that we used to do it because we don't have the funding to do that. And so just wanted to put that out there since we were talking about the high grass. We are still going out, handling those properties, but we have less funding to do that. So it's going to be on a less,
When we get to that topic, I'd love to talk about, some of the collections and letting people be a little more aggressive on those weed assessment charges and how that is, are we putting liens or what are we doing? Right.
correct. Any other questions for, myself, now or Tim?
I agree with the assessment of looking at employees, I've had a lot of interaction and they do a great job for your staff.
The last thing I'll say about the employees is that, we talked for the utility departments and we talked about the water department, but the public works staff is another department that we trying to make sure that we retain as well. They create a real. We go so they will get certification, and after they complete that program, they'll be qualified to be, over 5 years to get receive, funding. So they still want, no employee are receiving a merit, but we're trying to be creative in ways of keeping a hope of having, making sure that they get some certifications to be successful.
Bridge services, there's so much money in this coming year's budget. for the street resurfacing. How you go about prioritizing, because everybody wants their street repaved, or patched, or whatever. I hear about Winstead Road all the time. That's just one of the streets around the city. How do we go about deciding what? Well, not just Winstead, I'm talking about Winstead Road, going down to Sam's. How do you go about saying this is priority, or obviously it costs. We'll have so many dollars, but how do you assess where we go?
I'll have a start and I'll let the engineer come in. So we actually have a study, it's like the road condition, paving condition study. So we know the areas that are, the worst, so to speak, and have a ranking scale that's based off of depth, potholes, and those things, et cetera. The issue that we run into is that the amount of funding that we have, we contract all this work out. We do small projects, but the larger contractors, if we don't have a certain dollar amount, they're not gonna come off of a DOT multi-million-dollar project to do our one street. And so what we try to do is, stack some of those projects up until we have a substantial amount, and then we do it in sections based off of that, pavement condition study. Donald, add to that, but we do have that in-house, and we actually provide that to you all so you can see which areas are grant. Though now we understand that everybody thinks that, you know, mine is the worst, but we actually have a study that shows which roads are in the worst condition. But we try to make sure that we do it in sections. So like you may have one road, that is in very bad condition, you have another road that's not so bad. So we'll still do both because it's more cost effective to do them at the same time as to mobilize this road over here versus another road on the other side of town. So we try to look at it from a strategic approach, but we do have methodology that we use based on condition of the pavement.
It'd be good if you can provide us with an updated schedule once it's complete.
To expand on what you're saying, I know this Powell bill's right at $2 million. And to get the contractors in here, just a ballpark, to get them in here to work on our roads, what would we have to have? 3, 4, 5 million?
And I just said, basically, one of the things we do is we give them a long time to do the, finish the project, the researching, because what they can do is they can be working on a big project, and then they've got a delay or something like that, and then they'll come in and do around the street, they can do it, pull back off, and then they'll come back. So give them an extended time period, more than typical. Because also you have winter time as well.
We give them a lot more flexibility because we know they're gonna go after the money item. If they have a restriction on a big project, like a holiday restriction, they'll come work with us.
And then that an increase in for the vehicle, you know, it has to be spent directly on those type of projects. So that's not something that we're going back, putting in the general fund, for any type of administrative fee. I know that's been a topic of discussion. This is something that goes directly to those type of projects. I think the $5 amount, ends up being around, 190 or 200,000, somewhere around there. Additional to what we've had, because for the last couple of years, we've been at $25, but the state allows us to go up to 30, so that's what I'm recommending. And the state allows us to go above that.
So as far as, state, not really possible, having budgeted for the VA increasing and how much I'm really.
I'll start. So we budgeted some of those, but we are not keeping as many, in the warehouse. I don't know the exact dollar amount for one student portion, but it's kind of expensive. And what's been occurring is that you have, we go through this speed study test, and a lot of places are not qualifying. So if you qualify, we're trying to put those down, but we've actually slowed down on that because during this summer months, we didn't want to keep a lot of that stuff, in stock, but we are planning to move forward and increase that in the future months.
What line item would that be under?
It's not in
It's not in
stormwater.
It's not in stormwater.
Okay. Okay, I'm apparently so.
I'll have answers for you. Surface training, being
It'll
service.
be in service traffic. Dean?
There's no further questions for the staff. Really appreciate the discussion. And if you find there's anything else that you need before the next meeting, please let us know. We'll have an opportunity to try to our best to explain what we have in the budget and then we'll make any adjustments. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We got, what, 10 in the?
Yes, sir.
That's it. The meeting's adjourned.
I'm sorry.
Oh,